News of what happened in the Great Temple spread across the galaxy like a shockwave. Every news channel, every communication network, every planet in the Valmari Empire heard the story. A human had defeated an entire squad of Korath assassins alone. A human had saved the life of Princess Nyla. A creature that the Empire had dismissed as weak and primitive had shown power that no one could explain. The footage from the temples. Security systems was leaked within hours. Billions of beings watched Taiho fight. They watched him move faster than sight. They watched him take down soldiers twice his size. They watched him stand alone against impossible odds and win. For the Valmari, it was a moment of reckoning. Everything they believed about humans was wrong. They had started a war thinking it would be easy. They had offered peace thinking humans were defeated. Now they understood the truth. Humans were not weak. They had simply been holding back. Emperor Doran called an emergency meeting of his advisors. They gathered in the war room, their faces grim and uncertain. How did we not know about this? The Emperor demanded. We studied humans for decades. Our scientists examined thousands of specimens. None of them showed this kind of power. One of the chief scientists stepped forward nervously. Your Majesty, we did find some unusual readings in human biology. Their adrenal systems are remarkably complex. Their neural pathways can reorganize under stress. But we dismiss these as minor adaptations. We never imagined they could lead to what we witnessed today. So every human can do this? Asked Lord Kieran, who had survived the attack with only minor injuries. Not exactly, the scientist replied. From what we can tell, this ability only manifests in extreme situations. And even then, only in some individuals. The human Taiho seems to have a particularly strong expression of these traits. The Emperor sat back on his throne, deep in thought. He had planned to use the marriage to humiliate Earth, to show the galaxy that humans had surrendered. Instead, he had accidentally revealed their true potential to everyone. This changes everything, General Varn said. He had recovered from his wounds and now stood with bandages wrapped around his chest. If humans can unlock this power in combat, they could become the most dangerous warriors in the galaxy. Continuing the war against them would be suicide. More than that, said another advisor. If other species learn about this, they may want to ally with humans instead of us. Our position as the dominant power could be threatened. The Emperor nodded slowly. He saw the path forward clearly now. Then we must ensure that humans become our allies, not our enemies. This marriage must become real, not just political theater. He turned to look at a screen showing Taiho and Nyla standing together. My niece seems to have already understood this. Look at how she looks at him now. It was true. In the days since the attack, Nyla had changed completely. She no longer avoided Taiho or treated him with coldness. Instead, she sought his company. They walked together in the gardens. They shared meals. They talked for hours about their worlds, their lives, their hopes for the future. For Nyla, the attack had been like waking from a dream. Her whole life, she had been surrounded by people who wanted to use her. Nobles who saw her as a path to power. Servants who feared her title. Even her own uncle, who had offered her to a human without asking her permission. But Taiho was different. He had fought for her without any promise of reward. He had nearly died to save someone who had treated him badly. That kind of selflessness was something she had never experienced before. Tell me about Earth, she said one evening. As they sat on a balcony overlooking the Silver City, Taiho smiled at the memory of his home. It is beautiful. Not like this place, with its perfect buildings and orderly streets. Earth is wild and chaotic. Mountains that touch the clouds. Oceans that stretch beyond sight. Forests so thick that sunlight cannot reach the ground. It is messy and dangerous and wonderful. It sounds frightening, Nyla said. It can be. But that is what made us who we are. We did not evolve on a safe, comfortable planet. We had to fight for survival every day. Against weather, against predators, against disease. Only the strongest and most adaptable live long enough to have children. That is why we are the way we are. Nyla looked at him thoughtfully. Is that where your power comes from? The thing you did in the temple? Taiho nodded. It is called the survival surge. When we face true danger, something inside us awakens. Our bodies become faster, stronger, more aware. It is like a gift from our ancestors, passed down through millions of years of struggle. Not all humans have this gift. All humans have the potential, but most never need it. They live safe lives, surrounded by technology and comfort. The surge only awakens when there is no other choice. When death is certain unless something changes. Nyla reached out and touched his hand. It was a small gesture, but it meant everything. You almost died for me. I would do it again, Taiho said simply. Why? We barely know each other. Taiho turned to face her fully. In the soft light of the evening, his eyes were warm and honest. Because that is what humans do. We protect the people we care about. We fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. It is not logical or calculated. It is simply who we are. And you care about me? Nyla asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Taiho held her gaze. I have cared about you since the moment I saw fear in your eyes instead of arrogance. You put on a mask for the nobles, pretending to be cold and distant. But underneath you are kind. You are lonely. And you deserve someone who sees the real you. Nyla felt tears forming in her golden eyes. No one had ever seen through her mask before. No one had ever tried. This marriage was supposed to be political, she said. Just a symbol. Nothing real. It can be whatever we want it to be, Taiho replied. Politics do not control the heart. On Earth, Director Yuna received reports of everything that had happened. She sat in her office, reading the data with growing amazement. The young diplomat she had sent as a sacrifice had become a hero. He had saved the Volmari princess. He had revealed a power that humans themselves had forgotten they possessed. She called an emergency session of the United Earth Council. Leaders from every nation gathered to discuss what this meant. The Volmari now see us as equals, Yuna explained. Perhaps even more than equals. They fear what else we might be capable of. This gives us incredible leverage in the peace negotiations. We should demand reparations, one leader said. They invaded our planet. They killed millions of our people. We should demand technology, said another. Their ships, their weapons, their medical advances. Yuna held up her hand for silence. We could demand many things, but I believe Taiho would want something else. Something greater. She pulled up an image of Taiho and Nyla standing together, holding hands. He wants genuine peace. Not a temporary ceasefire. Not a cold truce. He wants our species to truly become allies. To learn from each other. To build something new together. The council debated for hours. In the end, they agreed. They would pursue real friendship with the Volmari. Not because they were weak, but because they were strong enough to forgive. 1 month later, Taiho and Nyla stood together at a new ceremony. This one was held on Earth, in a beautiful garden where cherry blossoms fell like pink snow. Representatives from both species attended. There were no insults this time. No mockery. Only hope. The couple exchanged vows again, but this time the words meant something. This was not a political arrangement. This was a choice. Two people from different worlds, choosing to build a life together. I pledge to honor you, Taiho said, holding Nyla's hands. To protect you. To stand beside you through whatever challenges come. Not because it is my duty, but because I love you. Nyla's eyes shone with tears of joy. I pledge to trust you, to learn from you, to face the future without fear, because you will be with me. I love you, Taiho, my husband, my partner, my friend. When they kissed, humans and Velmari cheered together. It was a small sound against the vastness of space, but it was a beginning dot in the years that followed. The alliance between humans and Velmari grew strong. Together, they explored new worlds. They shared technology and culture. They learned from each other's strengths. Humans brought creativity, adaptability, and fierce determination. Velmari brought wisdom, resources, and knowledge of the stars, and when other species threatened them, they faced those threats together, side by side. Stronger than either could be alone. As for Taiho and Nyla, they became symbols of what was possible. Their love story was taught in schools on both worlds. Children grew up hearing about the quiet diplomat who became a hero, and the cold princess who learned to love. They had 3 children, each carrying the heritage of both species. Their eldest daughter would one day become the first joint ambassador to a new galactic council. Their sons would become explorers, venturing further into space than anyone had gone before. And through it all, Taiho never forgot the lesson he had learned in the Great Temple. True power was not in weapons or armies. It was in the courage to protect what mattered, the strength to forgive those who wronged you, the wisdom to choose love over hate. The Velmari had married him to secure peace. They never anticipated what that peace would become, a friendship between worlds, a love that crossed the stars, and a new dawn for all of humanity. The change began in Taiho's heart. It was like a fire that had been sleeping for years, suddenly waking up. He could feel it spreading through his blood, into his muscles, into his bones. Every cell in his body was alive in a way he had never felt before. The Kareth soldier closest to him raised his weapon. Enough talking. Time to die, human. He swung his blade at Taiho's head. Taiho moved to the Korath. It looked like he simply vanished. One moment he was standing there, the next he was gone. The blade cut through empty air. What? The soldier gasped. Taiho was behind him now. Before the soldier could turn, Taiho grabbed his arm and twisted. There was a loud crack. The soldier screamed and dropped his weapon. Taiho caught it before it hit the ground. Impossible, another soldier whispered. Humans cannot move that fast. But Taiho was already moving again. He flowed through the Korath like water through rocks. His movements were not like the elegant dance of Velmari warriors. They were raw, brutal, efficient. Every strike hit its target. Every block came at the perfect moment. He was faster than any human had the right to be, stronger than any creature his size. The Korath commander watched in disbelief. What are you? Taiho did not answer. He was too focused. His mind had become clear and sharp like a blade. He could see everything. The position of every soldier, the angle of every weapon, the weak points in every piece of armor. Information flowed into his brain faster than thought. This was the human gift. Not strength or speed alone, but adaptation. When humans faced extreme stress, when their lives were truly in danger, something inside them changed. Their bodies pushed past normal limits. Their minds processed information at incredible speed. They became, for a short time, something more than human. Scientists on Earth called it the survival surge. Most humans never experienced it, but those who did became legendary. Taiho had known about this gift since he was young. He had felt it wake inside him when the bombs fell on his city, when he held his dying mother in his arms, when he swore that he would do anything to protect the people he loved. Now, that gift was fully awake. He took down 3 more soldiers in the space of a heartbeat. His stolen blade moved so fast it left trails of light in the air. The Korath tried to surround him, but he was never where they expected. He ducked under their attacks, stepped around their strikes, and countered with deadly precision. A soldier fired an energy blast at point-blank range. Taiho tilted his body at the last moment, letting the blast pass by his ear. He felt the heat, but it did not touch him. Then he drove his elbow into the soldier's throat. "Kill him!" The commander screamed. "Everyone, kill him now!" A dozen soldiers charged at once. Taiho did not retreat. He ran toward them. What happened next was hard for anyone to follow. Taiho became a blur of motion. He disarmed one soldier and used the weapon against another. He threw a blade through the air with perfect accuracy. He broke bones, shattered armor, and left a trail of unconscious bodies behind him. The whole fight lasted less than a minute. When it was over, Taiho stood in a circle of fallen enemies. He was breathing hard, and his body was covered in sweat. The survival surge was already fading, but its effects remained. He had done what no one thought possible. The Korath commander stood alone now. His soldiers were defeated. He stared at Taiho with a mix of fear and rage. "What are you?" he demanded again. Taiho walked toward him slowly. "I already told you. I am human. No human can do what you just did. You are some kind of monster." Taiho shook his head. "Not a monster. Just a survivor. Humanity has been fighting to survive for millions of years. Against predators. Against nature. Against each other. We evolved to overcome impossible situations. When we are pushed to the edge, we push back. Harder than anyone expects." The commander raised his blade. "I will kill you myself." He attacked with all his skill. His blade was a red blur, cutting through the air with deadly speed. Any normal warrior would have died in seconds, but Taiho was not normal anymore. He had seen the commander fight earlier. He had studied his patterns, memorized his techniques. Now, he knew exactly what the commander would do. Before he did it, block, dodge, counter. Taiho moved through the commander's attacks like a ghost. He did not try to match the commander's strength. Instead, he used the commander's own force against him. A redirect here, a push there. The commander grew frustrated. His attacks became wild, desperate. Finally, Taiho saw his opening. He stepped inside the commander's guard and struck 3 times in rapid succession. Chest, throat, temple. The commander collapsed, unconscious before he hit the ground. Silence fell over the temple. Taiho turned and looked around. The surviving Korath soldiers stared at him with wide eyes. They had seen their leader fall. They had seen a human defeat their entire squad. Everything they believed about humans was shattered. "Leave," Taiho said. His voice was calm but carried an unmistakable command. "Take your wounded and go. If you ever threaten the princess again, I will not be so merciful." The soldiers ran. They grabbed their fallen comrades and fled the temple as fast as they could. In moments, they were gone. Taiho let out a long breath. The adrenaline was fading now, and he could feel the pain of his injuries. Cuts and bruises covered his body. One of his ribs was probably cracked. But he was alive. And more importantly, Nyla was alive. He turned toward her. She was still standing by the altar, her white gown stained with dust and blood. Her bodyguards lay fallen around her. She had watched the entire fight, unable to look away. "Are you hurt?" Taiho asked. Nyla could not speak. She just stared at him like she was seeing him for the first time. "Princess?" "How?" she finally whispered. "How did you do that?" Taiho walked toward her slowly, careful not to startle her. "I told you. Humans are not what we seem. But that was impossible. You move faster than our best warriors. You defeated dozens of soldiers alone. It is called the survival surge," Taiho explained. "When humans face death, our bodies can temporarily exceed normal limits. Our ancestors used it to escape predators, to survive disasters, to protect their families. It is rare for it to awaken, but when it does, we become something more. Nyla shook her head. We studied humans. We analyzed your species before the war. We saw nothing like this, because it cannot be measured in a laboratory, Taiho said. It only appears when we truly need it, when we have something worth fighting for. He looked into her golden eyes. Today I had something worth fighting for. Nyla's breath caught. No one had ever protected her before. Not truly. The nobles wanted her for power. The servants obeyed out of fear. But this human, this strange little creature from Earth, had risked his life for her. Without hesitation. Without asking for anything in return. Why? She asked. Why would you fight for me? I have been cruel to you. I treated you like an insect. Taiho smiled gently. Because you are a person, and you deserve to live. That is enough reason for me. Before Nyla could respond, the sound of running footsteps filled the temple. Emperor Doran's personal guard arrived, weapons ready. Behind them came the Emperor himself, his face pale with shock. What happened here? The Emperor demanded. General Varn stepped forward. He had survived his wound, barely. Blood stained his uniform, but he was standing. The human, he said, pointing at Taiho. The human saved us. All eyes turned to Taiho, the human who they had mocked. The human they had called weak. He stood among the bodies of his enemies, battered but unbroken. The Emperor looked at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, he bowed his head. It was a small gesture. But from the ruler of the mightiest empire in the galaxy, it meant everything. It seems, the Emperor said quietly, that we have made a grave error in judgment about your species. Taiho bowed in return. We all make mistakes, Your Majesty. What matters is what we do next. The Emperor nodded. Indeed. He turned to his guards. Secure the temple. Tend to the wounded. And prepare a feast. Tonight we celebrate not just a wedding, but a new beginning. As the guards moved to obey, Princess Nyla walked to stand beside Taiho. For the first time since he arrived on Velmer Prime, she did not look at him with cold eyes. She looked at him with something else. Something like hope. It seems I misjudged you as well, she said softly. There is time to start over, Taiho replied. Nyla nodded slowly. Yes, I think there is. And in the ruins of the great temple, amid the chaos and destruction, something new began to grow between them, something that neither species had anticipated. The day of the wedding arrived with a blood-red sunrise. Taiho stood in his room, dressed in a ceremonial robe that the Velmari had given him. It was black and silver, colors that meant duty and sacrifice in their culture. He looked at himself in the mirror. The robe was too long for his human body. Another small insult, another reminder that he did not belong. A guard came to escort him to the great temple. The wedding ceremony would take place there, in front of thousands of Velmari nobles and officials. The whole empire was watching. This was the moment that would end the war and begin a new chapter in the history of two species. The Great Temple was the oldest building on Velmer Prime. Its walls were made of ancient stone that glowed with soft blue light. Pillars as tall as mountains held up a ceiling that seemed to touch the sky. Thousands of Velmari sat in rows, dressed in their finest clothes, watching as Taiho walked down the central aisle. Whispers followed him like shadows. Look at him. So small. This is the price of peace? How embarrassing. The princess must hate this. At the end of the aisle stood Princess Nyla. She wore a gown of pure white, decorated with crystals that sparkled like stars. Her silver hair was arranged in an elaborate style that made her look like a goddess. For a moment, even Taiho forgot to breathe. She was beautiful in a cold and distant way. but her eyes held no warmth when she looked at him. They held only duty. The high priest of the Velmari stood before them, holding an ancient book. He was old, even by Velmari standards, and his voice echoed through the temple like thunder. "We gather today to witness a sacred union," the high priest said. "Two souls from two worlds bound together for eternity. This marriage will end the conflict between our peoples and bring lasting peace." Taiho listened carefully to every word. He could feel the weight of 1 billion human lives on his shoulders. If this failed, the war would continue. More people would die. He could not let that happen. The ceremony continued with ancient rituals. Taiho and Nyla exchanged promises. They drank from a shared cup. They touched foreheads in the Velmari tradition. Through it all, Nyla's face remained like stone. Then came the final moment. The high priest raised his hands to bless the union. That was when the first explosion shook the temple. The floor cracked. Pillars shattered. Screams filled the air as Velmari nobles ran for their lives. Taiho looked up and saw shadows dropping from the ceiling. Dozens of figures in black armor, carrying weapons that crackled with red energy. "The Korath!" Someone screamed. "The Korath are attacking." Taiho had heard of the Korath. They were a faction of Velmari who hated the idea of peace with humans. They believed that the war should continue until every human was dead. They were extremists, terrorists, willing to kill their own people to achieve their goals. And now, they were here, in the heart of the Empire, on the day that was supposed to bring peace. The Korath moved fast. They cut down the temple guards without mercy. Their weapons were advanced, far beyond what normal Velmari soldiers carried. Someone had given them power. Someone had planned this. "Protect the Emperor!" General Varn shouted. He drew his blade and rushed toward the attackers. Other warriors followed him. But the Korath were too many, too well prepared. Varn fell with a blade through his chest. The Emperor's guards formed a circle around the throne, but they were being pushed back. Ho looked for Nyla. She was standing near the altar, frozen in shock. Her bodyguards were fighting the Korath, but one by one, they fell. A Korath soldier broke through and charged at her. Ho moved without thinking. He grabbed a fallen guard's weapon and threw himself between Nyla and the attacker. The Korath blade came down, and Taiho raised the weapon to block. The impact sent pain shooting through his arms, but he held firm. The Korath soldier laughed. "A human? You think a human can fight us?" He kicked Taiho aside like he was made of paper. Taiho hit the ground hard, the air knocked from his lungs. The soldier turned back to Nyla. "Princess," the soldier said, "your death will send a message. Peace with humans is weakness, and weakness must be destroyed." Nyla tried to run, but another Korath grabbed her from behind. She struggled, but their grip was too strong. More soldiers surrounded her. There was nowhere to go. Taiho pushed himself to his feet. His body screamed in pain, but he ignored it. He had to help her. He had to do something, but what could he do? He was just a human, just a diplomat. He had no special training, no weapons, no powers. The Korath were stronger, faster, better equipped. Against them, he was nothing. A Korath commander walked toward the altar. He was taller than the others, and his armor was decorated with symbols of death. In his hand, he held a blade that glowed with dark energy. "Today, the peace treaty dies," the commander said loudly, so all could hear. "Today, we remind the galaxy what the Velmari truly are. Warriors, conquerors, not diplomats who marry their princesses to animals." He pointed his blade at Nyla. "Kill her. Let her blood be our message." Nyla closed her eyes. She had always known she might die young. It was the fate of royalty in times of war. But she had never imagined it would be like this. Killed by her own people. Killed because she agreed to marry a human. She thought of her mother, who had died when she was a child. She thought of her father, who had abandoned her for his own ambitions. She thought of all the lonely nights in the palace, surrounded by servants but never loved. And then she thought of Taiho, the strange human who never showed fear. The one who looked at her not as a princess, but as a person. The one who spoke to her like she mattered. Where was he now? She opened her eyes and looked for him. He was on his knees near the altar, surrounded by Korath soldiers. They were laughing at him, pointing their weapons at his head. "Should we kill this one too?" One soldier asked. "Why bother?" Another replied, "He is nothing, just a weak little human." Taiho looked up. His eyes met Nyla's across the chaos of the temple. In that moment, something passed between them. Something wordless and strange. Then Taiho smiled. It was not a smile of fear or surrender. It was something else entirely. Something that made even the Korath soldiers pause. "You know," Taiho said softly, "there is something you should understand about humans." The commander turned to look at him. "And what is that little creature?" Taiho rose to his feet slowly. His body was battered. Blood dripped from a cut on his forehead. But his eyes were clear, calm, and in their depths something was waking up. Something ancient. Something powerful. "We are not what we seem," Taiho said. "You think we are weak because we are small. You think we are harmless because we do not have claws or fangs or psychic powers. But you are wrong. So very, very wrong." The Korath commander laughed. "What can you do, human? You have nothing." Taiho took a deep breath. He could feel it now, deep inside him. The gift that all humans carried, but few ever awakened. The power that came from millions of years of evolution. The ability to adapt, to change, to become more than what they were. Under pressure, humans did not break. They transformed. "Watch," Taiho said, "and learn." And then everything changed. The guest quarters were nice enough. The bed was soft, the room was large, and the windows offered a beautiful view of the Silver City below. But Taiho knew he was not a guest. He was a prisoner in everything but name. Guards stood outside his door at all hours. Servants brought him food, but never spoke to him. He was alone in a world that hated him. On his first morning, a servant came to tell him that the princess requested his presence at breakfast. Taiho dressed in his simple earth clothes and followed the servant through the winding halls of the palace. Everywhere he looked, Velmari nobles stared at him with amusement or disgust. He heard their whispers. "Is that the human? He looks so fragile. I heard their bones break like twigs. What a waste of the princess. She deserves better." Taiho kept walking. He had expected this. Humans had a saying, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me." He believed in those words. The breakfast hall was enormous. A long table stretched from one end to the other, covered with strange foods that Taiho did not recognize. At the head of the table sat Princess Nyla. Around her were a dozen nobles, all dressed in fine clothes made of materials that shimmered like liquid metal. Nyla did not stand when Taiho entered. She did not smile. She simply pointed to a seat at the far end of the table, as far from her as possible. "Sit," she said. Taiho bowed and walked to his seat. A noble sitting nearby moved his chair away, as if Taiho carried some kind of disease. Another noble laughed openly. "Tell me, human," said a male Velmari with dark blue skin. His name was Lord Kirin, and he was known for his cruelty. "How does it feel to be the weakest creature in the room?" Taiho looked at him calmly. "I would not know, my lord. I have never thought of myself that way." The table erupted in laughter. Lord Kirin's smile faded slightly. He did not like being challenged, even in such a small way. "You have spirit," Kirin said. "I will enjoy watching it break." Breakfast continued. Servants brought plates of food, but no one offered anything to Taiho. He sat in silence, watching and listening. He noticed how the nobles treated each other, how they fought for power through words and looks. He noticed how Nyla sat above them all, respected but not loved. She was feared, not admired. After breakfast, Nyla stood. "The human will accompany me today. I wish to show him our world." The nobles exchanged glances. Some smiled knowingly. They understood that this was not a kindness. Nyla wanted to show Taiho how small he was. They walked through the palace gardens, where flowers the size of trees bloomed in colors Taiho had never seen. Nyla walked ahead, never looking back at him. "Your planet is at war with us," she said. "Yet you came here willingly. Why?" "For peace," Taiho answered. "Peace is worth any sacrifice." Nyla stopped and turned to face him. Her golden eyes studied him like he was an insect under glass. "You speak of sacrifice as if you understand it. But what have you ever sacrificed? Humans live such short lives. What could you possibly lose that matters?" Taiho thought of his mother. Her face, her smile, the way she held his hand when he was a child. Then he thought of the fire that took her, the Volmari bomb that fell on their city. "I have lost enough," he said quietly. Something flickered in Nyla's eyes. Curiosity, perhaps, or something else. But it disappeared quickly. "Come," she said. "There's more to see." She took him to the training grounds, where Volmari warriors practiced their combat skills. They moved like dancers, their bodies flowing from one deadly strike to the next. They were faster than any human. Stronger, too. Their weapons hummed with energy that could cut through steel. "This is the might of the Volmari," Nyla said. "This is why we rule the stars." Taiho watched carefully. He studied their movements, their patterns, their weaknesses. Every fighter had weaknesses. It was just a matter of finding them. "Impressive," he said. Nyla frowned. She had expected fear. Instead, she got a simple word. "You are not afraid?" She asked. "Fear does not help," Taiho replied. "So I choose not to feel it." Nyla did not know how to respond. No one had ever spoken to her this way. She was a princess. People trembled before her. But this human, this small and ordinary creature, looked at her as if she were just another person. That night, there was a grand dinner to celebrate the upcoming wedding. Nobles from across the empire came to see the human who would marry their princess. They came to laugh. They came to mock. And they did not hide their intentions. Lord Kirin approached Taiho during the dinner. He held a goblet of wine that smelled bitter and strong. "Drink with me, human," Kirin said. "Let us toast to your marriage." Taiho took the goblet carefully. He knew this was a test. The wine was probably too strong for human bodies. Kirin wanted to see him get sick or pass out. "To peace," Taiho said, and he drank. The wine burned his throat like liquid fire. His stomach turned. His head spun. But he did not show it. He kept his face calm and handed the goblet back to Kirin. "Thank you for your kindness, my lord," Taiho said. Kirin's smile disappeared. He had wanted a show, and he did not get one. "You are strange for a human," Kirin said. "But strange will not save you. Soon you will break." They all do. The dinner continued. Nobles asked Taiho insulting questions about Earth. They laughed at human customs. They called humans talking animals and clever pets. Through it all, Taiho remained calm. He answered their questions politely. He ignored their insults. He never lost his composure. Princess Nyla watched from her seat. She had expected the human to cry, to beg, to show some sign of weakness. But he showed nothing. He was like a stone in a river, unmoved by the current. "Why do you not fight back?" She asked him later, when the dinner was over and they stood alone in the hallway. Fighting back would change nothing, Taiho said. They have already decided who I am. Nothing I say will change their minds. But actions speak louder than words. In time, they will see. Nyla crossed her arms. See what? That you are patient? Patience is not power. Taiho smiled softly. You might be surprised, Princess. She looked at him for a long moment. There was something in his eyes that she could not read. Something hidden beneath the surface. For the first time, she wondered if there was more to this human than she had thought. The wedding is in 2 days, she said. After that, you will be my husband. But do not think that means anything. This is politics, not love. You are a symbol, nothing more. I understand, Taiho said. Nyla turned and walked away. Her footsteps echoed through the empty hall. Taiho watched her go, his expression unchanging. He returned to his room and sat by the window. The purple sky of Velmar Prime glowed with distant stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, his home. His sister was probably sleeping now, dreaming of a world without war. He hoped he could give her that dream. Tomorrow would bring more insults, more mockery, more tests. But Taiho was ready. He had been preparing his whole life for a moment like this. Not training in combat or strategy, but in something far more important. He had learned to wait. He had learned to watch. And he had learned that the greatest power was not in the fist, but in the heart that refused to break. The Velmari thought they knew humans. They were wrong, Dot, and soon, very soon, they would learn the truth. The war had lasted for 7 years. 7 long years of fire, death, and sorrow. The Velmari Empire had crossed the stars to conquer Earth, believing humans were nothing more than primitive creatures. They were wrong. Humans fought back with everything they had. They lost millions, but they never surrendered. And now, the mighty Velmari Empire was tired. Their soldiers were dying. Their resources were running low. For the first time in their 1,000-year history, they wanted peace. Emperor Doran sat on his golden throne, his 4 eyes staring at the hologram of Earth. His skin was pale blue, and his body was tall and thin like all Velmari. He had lived for 300 years, and in all that time, he had never seen a species like humans. They were weak. They were small. They had no special powers. But somehow, they refused to die. We cannot continue this war, said General Varn, standing beside the throne. Our losses are too great. The humans destroyed 2 of our ships for every one of theirs we take. They are insects, the Emperor replied, his voice cold. How can insects hurt us so much? They do not fight like other species, Varn said. They are unpredictable. They sacrifice themselves without fear. They adapt too quickly. The Emperor closed his eyes. He had underestimated these creatures. That was his mistake. But he would not admit it openly. Instead, he would find another way. Bring me the ancient scrolls, he commanded. A servant rushed to obey. Minutes later, the Emperor held a scroll that was older than his own grandfather. It spoke of an ancient ritual, a way to end conflict without more bloodshed. A political marriage. 2 species, bound by the union of 2 souls. It was a sacred tradition, one that the Velmari had not used in 500 years. We will offer them peace, the Emperor said slowly, and we will seal it with marriage. General Varn's eyes went wide. You would give a Velmari bride to a human? Not just any bride, the Emperor said. My niece, Princess Nyla. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The Velmari Empire, the most powerful force in the known universe, was offering peace to Earth, and they were offering a princess. Many laughed. Many thought it was a trick. But Earth's leaders saw an opportunity. They were tired too. They wanted the killing to stop. A meeting was held in the Great Hall of the United Earth Council. Leaders from every nation sat around a massive table, arguing about what to do. "This is a trap," said one leader. "They want to get close to us, then destroy us." "Perhaps," said another. "But if we refuse, the war continues. How many more must die? Who would we even send?" asked a third. "Who among us would marry an alien princess?" The room fell silent. No one wanted to volunteer. The Velmari were terrifying. Their princess could be a monster. This was not a duty anyone desired. Then, a soft voice spoke from the corner of the room. "I will go." Everyone turned. A young man stood up from his seat. He was not a leader. He was not a general. He was just a junior diplomat named Taiho. He was 28 years old, with short black hair and calm eyes. He wore a simple gray suit. There was nothing special about him. Nothing at all. "You?" said the head of the council, a woman named Director Yuna. "You are nobody. Why would the Velmari accept you?" Taiho smiled softly. "That is exactly why they will accept me. They want to humiliate us. They will be happy to see that Earth sent someone small and unimportant. It will make them feel superior." Director Yuna studied him carefully. "And you are willing to sacrifice your life for this?" "I am willing to do what is necessary for peace," Taiho replied. There was something in his eyes. Something Director Yuna could not quite understand. But she had no better options. No one else was volunteering. "Very well," she said. "You will be Earth's representative. You will marry the Velmari princess. And you will secure this peace, no matter what it costs." Taiho bowed his head. "I understand." 3 weeks later, a small Earthship flew toward the Velmari homeworld. Inside sat Taiho, alone except for a pilot and a translator. He looked out the window at the stars passing by. He thought about his mother, who had died in the first year of the war. He thought about his sister, who still lived on Earth with her 2 children. He thought about all the people who were counting on him, even though they did not know his name. The Velmari homeworld was called Velmar Prime. It was a planet of purple skies and silver cities. Everything was tall and elegant, designed for beings who thought themselves better than all others. When Taiho's ship landed, a crowd had gathered to watch. They pointed at him and whispered. Some laughed. "Look how small he is," one Velmari said. "He looks like a child," said another. "This is what Earth sends?" Pathetic. Taiho heard every word. His translator device made sure of that. But he did not react. He simply walked forward, his back straight, his face calm. A group of guards led him to the Imperial Palace. It was the largest building Taiho had ever seen. The walls were made of white stone that seemed to glow. The ceilings were so high that clouds formed inside the great halls. Everything was designed to make visitors feel small and weak dot at the end of a long hallway. Emperor Doran waited on his throne. Beside him stood a young female Velmari. She had silver hair that flowed down to her waist, and her skin was a soft shade of lavender. Her eyes were gold, and they looked at Taiho with open disgust. This was Princess Nyla. "So," the Emperor said, his voice echoing through the hall, "this is the human they send to marry my niece." I expected more. Taiho bowed deeply. "Your Majesty, I am honored to be here. Earth thanks you for this opportunity for peace." The Emperor laughed. It was not a kind laugh. "Peace, yes, that is what we offer. And you, little human, are the price Earth pays." Princess Nyla stepped forward. She was taller than Taiho by a full head. She looked down at him with cold eyes. "You are not what I imagined," she said. "You are less." Taiho met her gaze without flinching. "I am sorry to disappoint you, Princess. But I promise you this, I will do everything in my power to make this union work." Nyla turned away. "We shall see." The Emperor raised his hand. The wedding will take place in 3 days. Until then, the human will stay in the guest quarters. Make sure he does not cause trouble." Guards surrounded Taiho and led him away. As he walked, he could feel the eyes of every Volmari on him. They saw a weak, insignificant creature. A joke. A symbol of Earth's surrender. But Taiho knew something they did not. He knew what humans were truly capable of. And when the time came, they would all see. For now, he would wait. He would watch. He would learn. And he would be ready.